Will Trump fire Powell? This morning is Friday, July the 17th, before the market opens. I thought I'd shoot a quick video on whether Trump will fire Powell and what the ramifications could be. Earlier this week, we saw some statements coming out in the media saying that Trump was ready to fire Powell. The White House has made some statements, and they were confirmed by others that Trump had a letter on his desk to fire Powell. And the markets got a little bit roiled from that. We saw them go down a bit. We saw the US dollar go down, gold go up, etc. And then Trump came out and made a statement and said, no, he doesn't want to fire Powell. He'd like to, but he's not going to, unless there's some fraud. And I had to laugh at that one. And what he was referring to was the renovation for the Eckles Building, which is the Federal Reserve building where houses all the employees. And the Federal Reserve building is going under a $2.5 billion renovation. That's a huge renovation for one small government institution. Well, okay, there's 900 PhDs with the Federal Reserve. I'm not sure they need that many. They haven't done that good of a job over time. So I'm not sure that... And the renovation is over budget as well. So maybe Trump will look for some sort of anomaly in spending and go after Powell. I'm not sure he will, but he is indirectly threatening that. Here is some irony on this situation, though, and that is the Federal Reserve building is named the Eckles Building. Eckles was the chairperson for the Federal Reserve from 1934 to 1948. And he had some problems with Truman, by the way, the president at the time, 1948. Truman wanted him to be a lot more dovish, and he refused. And they went back and forth. Now, here's what Eckles did. Eckles actually finished his position as chair in 1948, and then he sat on the board of the FOMC until 1951 for 3 more years, despite Truman. And he couldn't be fired. Will Powell do the same thing? Finish his position as chair in May of 2026, which isn't that far away, and then sit on the board after the fact? I don't think so. I think Powell wants to be out. But so they named the Federal Reserve building Eckles because it represented the independence of the Federal Reserve from the government. Most people don't know the Federal Reserve is actually a private institution. It's not a government institution. It's owned by the big banks, which is kind of strange, but it is. This morning I'm walking in Bronte Provincial Park, which is on the Bronte Creek, the west part of Oakville. A beautiful way to start the morning, get a little fresh air, a little sunshine, and think about what's going to take place in the markets. So what is Trump doing? Why is he making these statements? Well, I think you have to take a look at the way he's handled the tariff negotiations. He goes from one extreme to the other. They're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. And I think he's doing the same thing right here. He's putting up trial balloons, and he's trying to force a position at the same time. So I think he's trying to really bully Powell here at this point into leaving. It doesn't look like Powell's going to leave. There's rumors that he might. But at the same time, Trump's also putting out these trial balloons and saying, well, maybe I will do this, and seeing how the public reacts and seeing what happens in the markets, etc. And when the markets thought that Powell was going to be fired, the US dollar went down, the markets went down, gold went up. So not a good scenario. In fact, the markets are concerned because Trump has made some statements saying that he wants to see a 300 basis point cut in the federal funds rate all at once. In fact, he's actually gone past that. Just recently, he called Powell a knucklehead and said rates should be below 1%. Now, Trump is looking at the rates, and he keeps talking about how much money it would save the government. It would save them $1 trillion a year. So the Federal Reserve is an independent body from the government, and it has 2 mandates. One is maximum employment, and the other one is price stability. Has nothing to do with the government debt. Nothing at all. In fact, it's the counter to that, because if the government spends too much money, you want interest rates to go up to stop them from spending too much money. Otherwise, they will just keep going and cause a bigger and bigger problem. So Powell is being conservative at this time. There's no question. He's saying, well, we're not sure if inflation's done. And we want to be conservative and wait for more evidence. And we can argue back and forth about whether the PCE or the year-over-year CPI or core is at target or below target. But he's concerned that what could happen is exactly what happened in the 1970s. And that is that we saw inflation spike up with too easy of a monetary policy, and then come back down again when the Federal Reserve tightened policy and the government cut back their spending. And only to see that when everybody believed inflation was conquered, that the government went back to spending huge amounts of money. Our governments today just keep spending, so it doesn't really matter on that front. But also the Federal Reserve started to become more dovish. And then inflation spiked up again and went way past where it was before. So that's what he's concerned with. And yes, there is an argument that the Federal Reserve should be perhaps a little bit, well, they're behind the curve here a little bit. But legitimately, Powell's concerned for this. So what would happen if the Federal Reserve actually did cut the interest rates, its federal funds rate, by 300 basis points all at once? Well, the US dollar would go through the floor probably. There would be a lack of faith in the US monetary system as well. You'd see things like gold probably spike, Bitcoin spike, because the US dollar would now be seen as, well, a currency that couldn't be trusted at this point. I mean, there's all sorts of damage done to the US dollar when there was an increase of about 38% over 2 years during COVID. Well, if you print 38% more dollars, that's decreasing the value of all the dollars out there. And this is something that would happen again. And I think the second time around would have a bigger impact as well. So who's in the running for this position that Powell is going to be finishing up at some point, whether it's coming up shortly or later on? Well, there's a couple of the Federal Reserve FOMC members right now that are in the running for this, and you can take a look on Polymarket on this. And then there's Hassett. Hassett is the director of the National Economic Council, and he's the favorite to take over from Powell. And he's a very loyal person to Trump. And he's come out and made some statements really trying to support Trump's actions here. And he's actually said, yes, Powell could be fired for a cause, which is a funny thing for him to be saying if he's the front runner on this. Now, I think that in the end, I think we're going to go back and forth, and I think Trump's not going to fire Powell. It could happen. It really could. We just don't know. And I think what's going to take place is that there's going to be another, Andrea Kugler is set to be finish up her position on the FOMC in January. I think Hassett will be appointed in her place. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to be the shadow chair for the Federal Reserve until Powell leaves. So what we're going to see is, Powell's going to make some statements in his appearance on TV after the Federal Reserve meetings. And then Hassett's going to make some statements and say, well, okay, forget what he said. This is what I'm going to do when I take over in another couple months. And the market's going to respond to those statements because they're going to front run it. It's just natural. It's just what happens. So we'll have to see what happens on that. But we really don't know if Trump is going to fire Powell at this point. I hope he doesn't. I think it would be a huge mistake for the system, and I hope whoever comes in is not aggressively dovish either as well, because that will just cause bigger financial problems down the road. There's no question in the short term that the economy would get boosted from lower rates, artificial stimulation, but being very aggressive on those would cause huge problems. So I'm hoping that Trump doesn't fire Powell, and I'd like to see somebody who wants to have the independence from the government. I'm not sure we'll get that though. So it's going to be an interesting situation, at least next year, if not in the near term. If you found this video enjoyable, please like and subscribe and help grow the channel. Thank you very much.